Okay, I think we are live, and I think it's working now. Are we working? Is this happening? Are we there? I see in the comments people are there. Is the sound okay?
I gotta be honest, I love that intro music. I could just lay on the couch,
the standby
with a nice cup of coffee. I just love it. It's so cozy.
That was intentional. It's like, okay, we're having technical difficulties, so we're going to soothe you with this music while you wait, you know?
Yes, yes.
And wouldn't that be better if you were on a phone call and you were being told, please stand by, that you were given maybe something that's a little bit better?
Yes, there is a very funny meme, and if those of you have seen it in the chat, I belly laugh uncontrollably when I see it. And you know the standard standby music you get on the phone if you have to call customer service. Well, there's a guy like standing next to a pool and he has like 10 phones and he's probably on something, but he's like twirling around with his phones, and the wording across is like, this is what is probably happening when I'm on hold with customer service.
Yeah, what they're doing.
What they're doing. And it makes me laugh. Oh, it's so funny.
So I don't know. I don't know where we left off. I don't know.
Listen,
This is
I know where we left off. Okay. I was talking about New York.
Okay. Welcome to New York.
And actually, while we were waiting too, it made me think that you actually have some really good stories. So we miss New York. For those of you that are just jumping in, I was talking about it's cold. Okay. Hello.
Okay. Yes, I'm cold. Me 24/7.
My Bible verse. Anyway, that it's way better than Connecticut, but that I miss. Sorry for those of you still stuck up there. I miss being able to get on the train and go into the city. It's just a great experience. It's just nice. Yeah. Anyway, Mark and I went a couple times. As a matter of fact, the first time we went is when I thought he was going to propose to me, and he did not.
It didn't happen that time because things were being prepared.
Like he stood me in front of the big tree in Times, like in Rockefeller Plaza. He did the whole thing, and then it was like magical. And then nothing.
It was.
Anyway, it was like a month later. But regardless, you actually have some really great stories of New York.
Well, we were talking about this today because I used to take a lot of trips,
did.
Especially when I was single. I used to take a lot of trips to New York, and it's about 45 minutes to the train, and then you take 2 hours and whatever train into Manhattan. It was just a fun trip to take. And so what I would do is I would go and I'd take some guys and friends, and we'd go and see shows or things like that. But I wasn't really into the Broadway shows. I actually tried to get into late night talk shows. So my first one was actually going to see the David Letterman show, and so really neat experience, like sit in the audience and all that kind of stuff. So and then one time I took a trip to Los Angeles years ago, and took opportunities to see some talk shows there too, and just sit in the audience and just kind of be a part of the experience. I've always enjoyed that. But
yeah, you like that stuff a lot.
We were talking about Conan, because I was in the audience. I'd seen Conan a bunch of times, and in my single years, I just loved Conan's self-deprecating sense of humor. And during those single years, I was also a very, very late night owl. What do you call it? Late owl? Night owl. Yeah, that's it. That's a night owl. Right. And so 12:30 wasn't too late for me to tune in. So if it's 12:30 where you're at, I understand. I can't stay up that late now, but I used to back then. But I was on the Conan show, and I was asked a question.
Well, you have to say when you were on the Conan show.
Yeah. I'll set all that up because it was a very interesting experience. I was with some friends of mine, and first of all, the band was very, very friendly, and we were right in the front row. And there's like a railing there, and then the band's right there. I could literally step up and lean over and high five. I know,
it's shocking how small those studios actually are.
Oh, very, very small. So we're sitting there, and the way it works is the studio's like 5 times smaller than you'd even comprehend. And they get you in there, and you sit, and then there's a lot of warm-ups. They're getting things ready. And so they have a person who comes out. He's like the warm-up comedian, and he's just working the crowd in telling jokes and stuff like that. And so I'd been to a number of these kind of things at this point, so I was kind of used to this. But this was, I want to say, a few months after 9/11, and here in the United States. So it's in New York. I think that day I'd done a little bit of visiting at Ground Zero. I'm trying to remember timeline, but I know it was not too long after 9/11, because a lot of the TV shows were like, we still need to be able to laugh. We need to still have humor, which I do agree. And I believe in our lives, you have to maintain a sense of humor, even in the stuff that you're, going through in the trials and things like that. But this is an experience I'll never forget, because I'm sitting there in the front row. The guy's telling his jokes, warm-up guy. He worked with Conan for all the way through in all his shows. He played special characters and things like that. And he's looking around the audience. He looks at me and he goes, "Hey, you. So what do you do for a living?" And I'm like, and I never liked that question.
I struggle with answering that question. You know me. I do this like long. You're like, you didn't have to say all that. I'm like, well, let me explain.
Yeah, it's true. They're like, so what do you do? What's your husband? What do you do for work? You're like, well, in 2006,
I start to go. That's where I'm an over explainer. It's awful.
But the reason I don't like, especially back when I was pastoring in that way, I didn't, because it automatically clicks people's assumptions, right? So you kind of have to. You feel this sense of like having to rewrite whatever church hurt or whatever things they don't like about Christians, this whole line, and I wanted to just say, I'm in the line of work of,
I play games. I play computer games.
I'm a motivational speaker.
Right. There you go. Right.
So anyways, he looks at me and he goes, "What do you do?" And I go, "I'm a pastor." And he steps back and he looks at the audience. He goes, "Whoa, you guys didn't know what you were in for tonight, did you?" Right? So I'm laughing. It's funny, And I can't remember what else he said, but I remember up until this next statement. I don't remember anything else he said, but he said this. He said, "Hey, the world's going through really difficult times right now. And there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of heartache. Do you have something that you could share with us to help us?" And so I look at him and I go, "I don't have anything funny." Like, he put me on the spot and I'm like, "I don't have anything funny." He goes, No, I don't want anything funny. I'm serious. What do you have to share with us?" And so I said, "Well, I really believe this is a time for our country to get back to God. Our hearts need to turn back to him. And this tragedy is bringing up." And he looks at me and he goes, Thank you. I appreciate that." So then I'm like, that was so strange, because we're here. They're doing warm-ups, they're flashing the lights,
right.
Applause. The band's coming in. And here, welcome, see, it comes out and there's this like gap where he just like went, and it revealed like how much people at that time were aching. They were, this event had really changed their lives. It hit their hearts. Our churches were packed to capacity for like 3 weeks. Then after that, people were like, when
people put stuff behind
went back to where, the way life was before. But anyways, he's going. So then he goes back to, just doing improvs with the crowd. Some guy I don't know why I remember this. Some guy from Australia was way up, higher up in the seats, made some comment to the guy back. And he goes, "Hey, you need to turn back to God, buddy." So he was taking that line. He was now sharing, but it was just, me and my friends were like, that was a strange moment. And who knows? Who knows?
No, it was awesome that he called you out too.
Maybe God used that. But
you never know.
Sometimes when you walk through New York, or they do this in Los Angeles too. So I don't know if they do it anymore, because I haven't been since all the COVID stuff and everything's changed so much and all that. But you could walk around, they'd be like, "Hey, would you like tickets, to this late night show?" So I had, I took advantage of that, and we were like, "Oh, I'll see this one." And it was usually television shows, because there's many of them that they're looking for an audience. They need to get people in there, and but I also had, want to tell another New York story?
Oh, please. Yes, I would love you to.
Or do people just want me to get to the point?
Okay, this is our stream. I think people like our stories. If they don't, the people that don't, it's a small percentage, and they wait for the rebroadcast, and then they just go to the tag list. So that's fine.
Right. Well, I need to get out some of my irritation at my technology here.
I know.
So this will help me to get my mind off of being irritated with my board and my computer giving me trouble. But anyway, I had a friend of mine who was he was an actor, and he'd been on in some movies and TV shows and things like that. And
We
he
met them through ministry work. Yeah.
yeah, and so we would get together every now and then. And he lived he was in New York shooting Law and Order.
I won't say his brother's quite famous though, but we won't say what his name is.
Yeah,
His brother is.
Yeah. So anyway, he's like, hey, I'm in the area. I'm in New York. And I was like, let me come meet you. I was writing a book at the time, and I said, you know what? I'll write the book on the subway. So, took the subway and just sat there with my laptop. And I'm like, between there and back, it's going to be like 5 hours sitting on a train. I'll work on a few chapters of my book. And so I went out to meet him. He'd been shooting an episode for Law and Order, and went there. And I'm like, where's that? And texting him, he's not available. Then he's back, and then he's texting me. And so he's like, it's at this this pub, this such. So I go and I find it, and I see him there, and I see the pub, and I see all these the camera crew, what they call craft service, which is like where they have the food during breaks and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is where it is. So I'm just waiting and chilling. He comes out and he goes, hey, bro, come on in. So I'm like, I think I was like kind of playing like the polite guy, like,
right. You're like, no, but I want to go. No.
But yeah, once, if I get a little window, I take it. I'm like, I'm going right in. So I go in, and we go into the pub, and he tells the director, hey, this is my buddy. I'd like to have him be in a scene. And he's like, you want to be in a scene? I'm like,
that's so funny.
Okay. So the scene is he's a cop in a bar during the middle of the day and talking to another cop. And like one's like a special agent, the other one's, and if you look really hard.
Yeah, we had to like super pause it. You're like blurred in the background sitting at the bar. Yeah.
If you look really hard, you'll be able to find the scene and find the shot where I'm at. Which, interestingly enough, I was pastoring at the time, and somebody in the church who was a diehard Law and Order fan caught it and sent a
Isn't that, yes, they did.
Sent a screenshot. Says, this you? This looks like you. So I walk in. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So they send me all these forms. He's like, whatever, they got to sign waivers and things like that to be on television. I'm signing, and then the the makeup guy comes over to me, and he's like, okay, you're gonna need to take your glasses off. And he does this. He looks at my outfit and he goes, okay. I guess.
Like, you'll do.
He just completely
He dissed you. He dissed you with a sigh.
Yeah.
Like, I can't help him right now.
Yeah, so they give me a bottle of fake beer or something like that in the bottom. Like, you got to sit here and like do this, and then during one of the scenes, the director was like, "Hey, you went and looked at the camera. Don't look at the camera over there." And I'm like, sorry. So what was strange about that experience was a number of things. But one thing was the guy next to me on the corner is he's in this. He's into this. Like he's working his way up.
Yeah, like it's a big deal that he's just as an extra sitting there.
He's in the industry.
Yeah.
So I could feel he's irritated that I'm there.
He's like, who's this guy?
Yeah, and I'm a feeler.
Didn't go on an audition, right?
Yeah, I'm a feeler, so I'm feeling, and I'm like, oh boy. So I'm like, all right, whatever, And so then they shift me in my seat to the camera shot. So now he's out of the shot.
Yep.
And I'm like, I did not push my way through this, right? And so, anyways, there's one. I think a couple where you can glance and see, and then there's one shot of me in the background. So then we get done with this, and I'm like, bro, this is like, quite the little bit of a roller coaster ride here. So then he's like, come with me. We're going to go to the next scene, and the next scene was at a basketball court that they had blocked out. That they were going to do some kind of scene where there was an informant, and the cops were going to go to an informant and try to get some information. So here comes Ice-T.
Ice-T.
I almost said Ice Cube.
I know.
Ice-T comes in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was this, this story. Yeah. That was a very interesting interaction, because he was actually quite friendly. And when he comes up to me, he's like, "What's your name?" I go, he's got that like loud voice. I don't think he knows how to whisper.
Right.
I think Ice-T is always, he's always yelling everywhere. What's your name? And I was like, my name's Mark. He's like, how you doing, Mr. Mark? Like, you just kind of like that. How you doing, Mr. Mark? And then he goes, you a cop? I was like,
you're like, no.
I was like, you play a cop, and you're you're trying to filter me out.
You're like, wait, do I look like one? Hold on a second.
Yeah. Now, parents, if you have young children watching the TV,
yeah, but you could go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. He goes, because if you're a cop, I'm a you up. I'm like,
and he said it.
And he said,
yes. And Mark's like, should I be scared? Is this fun? Yeah.
Yeah, and then for the rest of the afternoon, it was going into evening because then it got dark and they were filming the scene. He was just telling all these stories, and they're like, "Hey, we got to get in the van and go, so come along." It was interesting though, because you never know where God takes your journey when you just take a step, take a step, take a step, take a step. I met the makeup lady that was there, and she was like the head of makeup for and all that. And it's interesting now. My daughter loves makeup. And during the segments when all of it's going on, because when they film scenes, they do it over and over and over and over again. And so I'm in the side, chatting. What's her name?
Mariska Hargitay.
Yeah. I have a hard time saying her name. Mariska Hargitay. There it is.
Yes. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, she was there and had a little exchange, and the guy I knew, said, "Hey, this guy has a ministry and stuff like that." So then, turn over to the makeup lady and just spent some time just helping her and processing with some stuff. Just happened to just come right out in conversation.
Did you feel like Mariska was very beautiful? But you said she had a lot of makeup. Obviously, is what they they glob it on. But.
I noticed that whenever I meet people that are like in that kind of situation, I'm overwhelmed with how much makeup they have on. That even in high definition television, it's still you don't see it. So when you see them in person, you see the heavy makeup, but you can kind of see like where they're tired. They're so when I saw her, she looked tired in her eyes, but the makeup just made up for it. Right. So just there's a brightness because they work exhausting hours. And but yeah, so that was that was some of my New York trip, just a couple of them.
It's funny too, because I know you shared before with like the Christian concerts and people you've interacted with. You've had a lot of interactions with like famous people.
Yeah.
Some not so good, which is sad because it's actually the Christian world that was the Christian artists.
Yeah,
that were not great.
I got to the point where if I really get a lot out of
probably can't tell some of the story either.
No, I was going to say if I got into the point where if I meet somebody that I really admire, like their work or their music or their writing, I don't want to meet them.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
We're a culture that puts people on pedestals in such a way that's unhealthy. And then when you meet and you realize they're just ordinary people.
They're
they're very, very, ordinary. We're all ordinary. We're just everyday people. But yeah, I just really enjoyed taking that train, going out there. I would meet people. I met a guy in the train who started telling me this long story, and he's a complete stranger. And he starts telling me about the story of the monks and how the monks were so passionate about having authentic food that they'd make, or monks that would make wine, or monks that would make they'd take fruit and make jams with it. And he's telling me this whole long story about these monks and how they would process the jam and how they would make it, and the fruits and everything that they would use years and years, and the patience and this and that. And at the end of the story, it was like a magic trick. At the end of the story, he's like, ring, and he pulls out a jar of jam. He just happened to have it.
Oh my goodness.
And he goes, I want to give this to you. And it was like, that was it. And I was like,
I love that. See, I love storytellers. I could sit at the feet. I could probably be one of a great person who just volunteers at an old folks home. And I'd be like, just tell me about your life.
Mm-hmm. Which goes into where we're going to talk today, because these...
Wait, somebody in that Paul S. Shosha, I think I got it. He said, did they use monk fruit?
No, it was sugar.
That's
it was
right.
definitely
the good jam has the sugar. Yes.
It did. But I forgot what I was going to say.
I don't know, but you've had some great experiences, babe.
Well, I know what I was saying.
Okay.
Where this one of the things that we all have to understand in mental health is, and just in life, is relationship interaction actually helps the areas that you struggle with in ways that you don't even understand.
So good. Mm-hmm.
And so, and a lot of times I was put in situations where I just had to learn how to have a conversation. Like, it's not like I don't have a chance to withdraw here. I mean, I could just walk away, but it taught me to learn how to practice. And then I found years later, I need to welcome those everyday interactions. Those are ways to practice working through anxiety, practice getting out of your head, practice. When we, I'm getting ahead of myself here a bit, but when we look at like relationships, quality relationships, mental health and all that, we think I got to have a deep relationship. We want the deep, and we don't appreciate sometimes the exercise in the shallow. You know, it's not good to only be shallow in the shallow end, but I also appreciate the shallow end. Talking about the weather, talking about simple things where you practice, you get to know someone, right? And then you build trust, and then you go deep. People that want deep, they want to just jump there. Let's get deep. And then many times they just always want to be deep, and that's exhausting.
Yeah.
You know? So, but anyways, some of those interactions showed me too that famous people get closed in having normal interactions, because you start to get surrounded by people that are they're there paid by you to be, you know, that you like them and favor them. So if an assistant's like, no, we shouldn't do that, I don't think that's, if you have your own opinion, they'd be like, they could do away with you. So now they're surrounded by people that just say yes, and just, you're amazing,
Right.
and you're just awesome. And they don't know how
Who's
to, like,
really talking to them to be real friends, right?
who's really talking to them to be real friends. And also they don't have the practice.
Very true.
So when you, like, for example, when you go out and drive and you accidentally cut someone off and someone yells at you and gives you the finger, it's like learning how to deal with real life. Many of these, you know, famous people, they don't even drive. So they don't have to do.
You would love that.
being driven.
Yeah.
I would.
You do, because side pivot.
Yeah.
I love to drive because
you do the driving.
I like to drive. I think I'm inside. I have a NASCAR driver in me now. I don't break the law. I'm not a speed demon, but I just think I'm a great driver. Anyway, Mark likes to be in the passenger seat, or sometimes we have a minivan. He sits in the back, and the kids love it because then they can sit in the front so that he can, like,
read,
prepare what he's doing.
Yep.
Right.
Write my thoughts down. Maybe
it's kind of funny.
Maybe journal, or
Right.
Yeah, I do.
So you do get driven.
Yep.
It's kind of funny.
So, do you want to take a minute and
say hey to everybody who came back after our little audio mishap, and thank you to all of you who've rejoined. So let's give a shout out.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Brooke Hawkins, Artie, Janata and Lynn, Emma P, Fudgy, Molly Joan. Oops, I didn't fix here we go. Paul, I am Kaya, Sneha, Priya Deep. Did I say that correct? Eat and Tell. Oh, that's a fun one. Bry, Darcy, Miranda, Adrian, Danielle. Oh, Romans 8, Colorful Thinker. La 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 la. Where am I? Let me just keep going here. Dominic, Kathleen. Did I get everybody? Joshua. I think I got everybody. Aaron.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I got everybody. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Tammy Tours, The Dream Detective.
We still good on
I think we got it.
We still good on Rumble over there.
Let me check. Yes, Katie, thank you for being on Rumble. And SU1307, awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, maybe I'll remember. I'll tell some of my Rumble stories. Rumble stories. I was thinking of two things at the same time. Okay, brain.
That's all right.
I'll tell some more New York stories, and maybe
you do have good stories.
maybe some Los Angeles stories in there too, and stuff like that. But I have something I gotta share with everyone, and that is last week we had some harsh words from the church lady. It was very, very harsh, and so I had to sit her down and I had to actually rebuke her, and yeah,
I'm already dead. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I had to. By the way, you can send questions by going to markdaces.com/questions. Let's see. I don't know if I have. Where's my my church lady slide? I don't know where my church lady slide is.
Oh, no.
It's okay. My computer's acting. I'll pray for my computer. Anyways, to church lady, I was sitting down with her, and I was like, I had to rebuke her. And I had to tell her, listen, you got some issues, and you can't talk to people like this. So, I set her aside, and she said, okay. She said, I'm gonna apologize. So I said, okay. Now you got it. Do you mean it? You mean it? And she told me she meant it. So, I'm gonna let her. So without further ado, the church lady, she's gonna apologize.
I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on, church lady. You said you were going to like really, really apologize.
I said I was sorry.
You just basically read off of a paper that you were sorry. I think I need a little bit more than that.
Okay. I'll give a little bit more this time in my apologies. Okay, everyone. I hope y'all paying attention. This is a formal apology from the church lady. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't say the things that I said sooner. I'm sorry that you can't handle what I'm going to say. I'm sorry that I didn't say more than what I said. I'm sorry that I had to listen to your whining, your crying, your sob story, your other sob story, your mother's sob story, your sob story's sob story, the 45 reasons why you can't do what you got to do, why you can't exercise, why you can't read, why you can't go out and walk, why you can't even pray, and you're fussing because you can't pray in tongues like I do, that you don't read your Bible, that you don't pray like I do, that you don't serve in the 14 services I served in this past weekend. I'm sorry you can't tithe 90%. I'm sorry that you can't handle the high level of spirituality that I carry. I'm sorry you can't handle the holy glow that emanates from this church lady. I'm sorry, and for that, I'm gonna slap you across the head with my King James Bible, give you a trauma, embed this in your forehead, because now I know that I'm really not sorry. The truth is, I'm right and you're wrong. You just can't handle it. Okay.
Okay, church lady. Okay.
I'm dead. I cannot. Oh, dude.
But I said it in love.
Isn't that the truth? I said it in love.
Well, yep.
It was just some correction that I needed to bring. That was.
I'm sorry.
You know what, babe?
I'm really sorry. I'm sorry.
Way to go.
I'm so sorry. She
is a mess.
She told me she was going to handle things differently.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, you tried. Listen, you tried.
So we all have King James letters in our foreheads. From the hit, the Bible went swinging. So, anyways.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Again, I said you can send in questions going to markdaces.com/questions. I think this will be an interesting one I'm going to get into. It ties into some areas that I want to discuss today. So it's actually not really a question. Well, it's kind of a question. It's just more, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this kind of thing. You can certainly send those in. If it's something I haven't addressed and would be something I think would be fruitful for those that watch this, these broadcasts, then I'll take advantage of this. So what was sent in is around the subject of parasocial relationships. Okay. If you don't know what that is, I'll get into that in just a moment because it's in the writing here. Hi, Mark. I don't have a question, but more of a request. Might be a rant. I recently learned about the term parasocial relationships. If you're not sure what that is, it's essentially when someone follows or watches another person online, such as YouTube, vlogger, influencer, TikToker, celebrity, you get the idea, and they develop a one-sided relationship with them. So the person watching, following, is giving a lot of energy and emotion to a person that they've never met, and they don't even know you exist. To the person being watched, you're just another follower or commenter. So the person watching, following, is pouring out a lot of energy and emotion for someone, but getting nothing back. I realized I was having this problem not only with human online creators, but also animals. I got so upset about several cats that I followed online and when they got ill or passed. I think a huge problem is these relationships are replacing real ones. So you're always, by the way, if you want to get big followings online, show cats or show dogs or show animals, like
You
it's
can
like,
do really, even like super dumb things and make a lot of money.
yeah. Well, I'm not saying animals are dumb.
I'm saying outside of that. No. I'm saying, sorry. Yeah.
So you're always giving your emotions and energy, but not getting anything back. It's leaving people depressed and drained. People have become scared to leave the house and be around people in two-sided real interactions. I see this in my work from my home job. My coworkers say things like, "I never leave the house," like it's a trendy new thing to brag about. It's very strange. The pandemic has done some real damage, and social media is really fanning the flames. So I'm gonna say this is a very, very strong statement, but I think that there is a worldwide mindset, and I think it has evil underpinnings in it that wants to drive it so that more and more and more people never leave their house. So that you all your work is done from home, everything's delivered to your home. I do see that as it makes it if you want to get take a deep dive, it makes it easier.
Oh, don't get me started.
It makes it easier to for governments and whether it's local level or national level to make more controlling decisions. It's just true. It is just true. And what we went through in 2020, 2021, and it's still having its influence, is the mental health battles in people's lives started to magnify. And one of the big reasons was fear of disease increased. There was a lot of talk of death. There was a lot of distortion because of the fear factor that came in. And then there's this sense of everybody's home. We lost that social connection that we have as human beings, which we need that. It's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. And so I just want to bring that to awareness. I agree. Now, if you're at home or you whatever issues you have, it's no condemnation, but we have to see this stuff with sobriety because our mental health is greatly healed and helped. I have found in my life and my journey where it's been relationships at different levels, some deep, some specifically for help, some just deep relationships, some just great people to just interact with, to practice, that those areas have been incredibly helpful for healing and freedom in so many areas of my house. And so, so get people to stay home, and then now we go to our devices, and like the writer said here, social media fans the flames. Many churches, during that time, I thought that would be a great time for the church to have a reset. Like they're shutting everything down. I would have been a good time to just kind of look at everything and go, let's reset. Let's reset everything and how we're doing things.
Yeah.
Instead, we just got better at live streaming,
Yeah,
and
isolating.
yeah. And listen, I do this. I have a studio here. I work here. I enjoy it. I love doing it. But you have to understand, I walk out of these doors and I live life. And I interact and I look for interactions and I let healthy interactions be a part of my life and a part of my journey. So we all have to realize this factor, because like you can jump into the feed in a social media feed, and we love the people in our live broadcast. We love how great you are in interacting with us. It is very meaningful, but it's an avenue where it can bring it needs to be a springboard to give you courage to step out there, right? Where this becomes like a great huddle for you to feel the courage to step out there and to take the steps you need, for your journey. But it's also, you can write something in the comments that's very, very harsh, very, very rude, and you can just, and there's no sense of like, saying things with the sense of someone's actually there hearing it, right? We need that. It balances us and buffers us, and social media has actually taught many people to just kind of say whatever they want, vent whatever they want, not have a sense of guard or a sense of how is this going to affect the other person? How's this going to affect the situation? And so in another way too, the isolation is hurting our emotional life. It is very much so. So I'm not done yet. We got to cats. We got to and listen. I used to people with their dogs and their cats and their animal loving. Now I have a dog, and
you never got it. You never understood.
Right.
I do have a problem where it gets extreme. Like, people will relate to me. Like with Max, I had people do this to me that they compared it to training their dog or like working with their dogs that weren't. And I was like, so the reference is they're treating it like it's their child.
Correct.
And it's not a real, right. And
Correct.
Listen, we love our dog a lot.
Correct.
But we do think people go way overboard because they're not having human relational connections.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, that's my side tangent.
No. Well, I was just more sharing about where for me, I was so dismissive, but didn't see the value and the beauty of what animals bring.
Right.
And so a lot more awe and a lot more appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Levi's helped me with that. But in my work, I've definitely seen, you could say like animal idolatry kind of stuff, where it's like taking the place. Animals can be a bridge. I've even mentioned this before. They can, like for example, horses. They can use horses to be a place of therapy for helping people with PTSD and stuff like that. There can be interaction in there. But again, these things have to be springboards for us to find steps to practice in real life. So. Anyways, let me get back to this over here. The pandemic, social media. There's a YouTuber that posts an hour-long vlog of her life weekly, and just so you know, like when people, you have to always keep in mind when you're watching people film their life, right? When they're filming their life, this is edited, it's cut, it's scripted, it's. We try to go, hey, this is real life.
A lot of these people have teams,
right.
Especially the bigger influencers, and it looks real. My gosh, they're so real. They're so, oh my gosh, they're so open and honest and real.
That's
what you don't understand.
That's my concern.
Planned, and they let you see what they want to see. And then I've noticed with some of these bigger influencers too, like it'll go too far, and then obviously the whole world, or not world, but the whole following feed is invested in what they're doing, and then they go, you know what, it's too far. And it's like, well, you let everybody in too. Right. It's a very fine line. We understand that. Yeah.
So it's very understandable too, with all the loneliness and the relational emptiness that people have, and we go to social media. It's our way of knowing what's going on or what's happening, or trying to connect or trying to feel something, that then we develop these connections with people we've actually never met, and they don't even really know us, or it's just a, you get what I'm saying. Let's see. Okay, so the YouTuber posts an hour-long video of her life. It's been a highlight of my week for the past couple months. I realize how sad that is, that the highlight of my life is watching small clips of hers. So this is my reaction to that statement. You say, I think it's sad that my highlight is watching a small clip of. I think this is where, don't shame yourself because you get a highlight for watching somebody online or you get excited about it. This is why I always encourage, we don't want to shame, we don't want to be in denial. Be sober. Let it be informative. Hey, I'm really excited about this person. I need to keep in mind that that's really intended for real life relationships. So I want to keep open to that. This is where I'm teaching my brothers and sisters to practice compassionate grace versus just, this is pathetic. I'm sitting here on a screen and you're just kind of shaming yourself. That's not going to produce long-term change. It might produce a knee-jerk reaction, but let it be sobering. Okay. And I'm not saying that you went into shame over this. I'm just reading your statement for what it is. So I like to notice when you notice patterns. Hey, it seems like hold on.
What happened?
Hold on. 1 second.
Your battery pack die?
I'm having all kinds of problems here.
You know what? Listen.
I'm
just
having all
roll
kinds
with
of
it.
all kinds of problems
Just
tonight.
roll with
So
it.
just roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
The battery died on my pack, so I went from like this to in my ears. That feels very strange. So anyway, so you enjoy watching small clips. There's people that I enjoy listening to.
Mm-hmm.
There's different kinds of things I like to listen to. I like to listen to people that are funny, interesting. They have interesting stories or things like that. People that are it's very informative. Like I want to sit down and learn. Like I need to take notes out. Then there's ones that are just maybe long form. I like long form discussions where topics are talked through. I don't like when people are just trying to say things in just small clips as far as like news or explaining things, because it becomes like gotcha stuff or just trying to like, win arguments or things like that. So I like those kind of things. So I may go, I like certain podcasters or YouTubers or whatever. I may go, wow, I really like their presentation. It looks really, really nice. And I think that's, it's wonderful. And, or that, oh, that's great. Look at that experience that they had with their family. Right. But I keep in mind, I'm watching their presentation. That's a great presentation. It's just like if I went to a Broadway show and I said, wow, that lady can sing, right? You appreciate it for what it is. But it's like, that's all I saw was that, presented moment. So anyways, let me continue here. She has a way, watching small clips of her. She has a way of talking to the camera like you're her friend. I find myself thinking of her during the week like I would a real friend. And I get it. I get it. That's understandable. So that's signaling an ache in the heart. It's signaling you'd like something of what you're seeing. You'd like that kind of conversation or interaction. Just be aware that you could be thinking that it needs to be like this, or like this person is always like this. So for example, if you were to enter into my world, I'm not talking mental health all day. I'm not walking around I think you guys know, I'm not walking around in a suit and tie or priest robe with my Bible all around all day. Just God speak to me. I think you know enough to know that. Okay. She has a way of talking to the camera like your friend. I find myself, thinking about her like I would a real friend, and leaving her comments to encourage her because I care about her as a person. I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. I don't think it's wrong to interact with. From time to time, I don't comment a lot, but every now and then, I may, hey, great job. This was great. Appreciate that. And I don't think that that's like, oh, that's dysfunctional. It's not what's happening. It's what's with what you're doing, maybe talking, sharing, typing. It's what's going on in here in the heart, where we're just being aware of, is this replacing where I need to be developing heart-connected relationships, person-to-person relationships. So you said the Holy Spirit gently showed me this isn't healthy. So I'm pushing myself to get off YouTube and I joined several small groups at my church to connect with people in real life. So your decision to join small groups, you said several small groups. I would say just one. Just join one. Several's too many. Just join one, develop meaningful interactions. It doesn't have to be just that and no YouTube. That's my 10 cents. Can I pause for a second in this and say, I feel like I experienced this. I'm going to bring you into this, Hunt.
Okay.
I feel like I experienced this before social media came about.
Okay.
When I was working at the larger church in Connecticut, people would develop like a certain sense of how they were connected to you.
Yes.
And all they saw was me on the stage conducting some type of responsibility in the service. And at one point in time, it was every service. I was always doing something, right? And then I noticed that even when we got married, when we were teaching, and people would buy our CDs. CDs. Do people use CDs anymore?
We used to really have to make a lot of CDs and,
Yeah, so I'd make CDs and even DVDs, and people would develop a sense of connection. So I would bump into them. And it would be a somewhat awkward interaction at times because
really not from our after leaving the big church too, of traveling around Connecticut and other areas, and then you would maybe see somebody like in the grocery store,
right? But even from people who would get my materials, who'd bought the CDs and stuff, they'd never been to our church, and then they'd visit one day. And they have this whole history of listening to all my stories or listening to things. And they hear about Max, or they hear about, what's going on with Abby, because many of those times they were just born. They were just, and they'd have this connection. They'd talk to me like we had that.
Correct.
And I'm like, hi, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you. So that,
right.
So I found, I don't want to blame social media for this. We have a tendency to do that. We just have to be aware. You look like you have a thought that you're.
No, it's because it's making me think of a specific time, especially that's why I said the grocery store. Someone said, yeah, like when you meet an actor, yeah, they go through that. That's why they have to constantly, protect themselves. But I remember an older lady who came up to us in the grocery store, and she was like, hi, like you would a friend or your family member came up to us, and we had no idea who she was. And you feel so bad. Yeah. Because she may have shared her story with us when we, months back at a church. And I want to remember who she is. You do feel awful. And there is a part where you and I do love connecting to people. I remember, especially times of you traveling, like it would be hours of you sitting with people. Like Mark was, you are who you are. Like he would sit with people for hours after church services, exhausted, but just doing it to let people feel connected to you. Yeah. And to what you just preached too. But you do feel bad. So you're right. It's not just a social media thing. We have done this in the past as a culture of where we are missing relational connection maybe in our own life. And you can feel, I feel connected to certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was in my 20s, speaking of going places, and I went to this leadership conference. John Maxwell was there. And when I was in my early 20s, I devoured everything he wrote and everything he taught and everything in his library, learning leadership, learning how to interact with people in healthy ways, and learning and practicing it. And so I saw him, at a conference, and I walked up to him, and I said, I just want you to know that your teachings have really helped my life. And I told him a couple messages, and I said, this one really hit home for me, changed me big time. So thank you. And I know that he's being nice. And I know in his mind, he's like, oh, that's there's not really anything to connect it with. Right. Right. Because he doesn't know me or anything like that. But I'm like, right. It was more for me. But now me, when people write to me, I appreciate it. I think I have I have a concern if one day I'm meeting people and they've emailed me and I'm like, wait, okay, which email was that? That was the thing, right?
For those of you that maybe haven't gotten a response, just like you really respond to most of the things, unless it's repetitive things that you've taught about. You will say, okay, now you can't because you get so many emails.
Well, and the emails are usually they're calling for quite a bit of a reply. It's you know,
it's not a small email. It's a lengthy.
It's not a 5-minute reply. But anyway, so I feel like subjects like this I can look at with like I try to look at subjects with balanced nuance versus like we kind of like. So I am hearing here, I got off social media, all things, and I went, I need physical relationships. I'm like, I get that, but I also get, I'm on YouTube using social media, and I get to reach and encourage a lot of people who I'm speaking to a subject. If this wasn't available, I'm sitting here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Maybe I could have people fly and travel into this place and then have to spend all this kind of money to get there and, you know, and all that, you know, now, or they can just click in this and tune in now, right? So I understand that. I've also, you know, met people and been like, that was kind of disappointing. And here's what I was disappointed by. I'm disappointed when I meet people where they have very, very little social capacity. Yes. And so that's why I tell people, you don't want to be famous. I don't want to be famous. No. I don't want to be famous. And I have no desire to do that. It doesn't, you lose groundedness. There's just a lot of unhealthy things there.
If I could just toot your horn, you had the opportunity to have a show on a channel and you turned it down.
Well, it was going to be potential in the workings, but I'm
just putting,
But I had to change my style. Yeah. I had to change.
You had to change who you were.
Yeah. Yes. Everything you heard in this broadcast so far, I wouldn't be able to do any of that. The church lady, none of that. No. It would have to be, hi, everyone, I'm Mark DeJesus, and here today I'm going to bring you and help you.
Would have a suit on, too.
Don't go to commercial. And I said, I didn't leave the institutional church world in that role to then go back into another, you know, jacket that was going to get put on me. So it's like no offense, but
It's why, too, we don't, you know, as probably a lot of you have noticed, we tried the social media route, too. It just gets overwhelming. And we could and probably get more followers and do all those things. And yes, all those things are great because that helps what we're doing and we want to reach more people. But it is exhausting because then it ends up, then you're getting DMs and there's a lot of interaction. It becomes a lot. Yep. And honestly, too, people are mean. People can be really, well, as you all know. Yeah. Sure. The comment section under certain things is just awful. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that was a great question.
Yeah. I think it's very, very interesting.
I think a lot of people are saying they can relate to it, very practical.
I think everybody needs to be aware. You know, there might be people that connect to you and connect to what you're saying, but you could develop a sense of like, you know, oh my goodness, I got to meet her someday. She'll, you know, be a magical moment. We're just ordinary people. You know, it's like, you know, you may love the teachings I have. That's wonderful. But the places that we get to, we just need to be aware of that. And I think it's healthy. Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to take a dance break?
Yeah. I was just
checking out the feed.
Yeah, somebody wrote, what do you mean by social capacity? Did I say that or did you? I think that sounds like something.
You did. I wouldn't say that.
Social capacity, I'd have to rewind and hear the sentence. But when I speak about social capacity, your ability to interact in a healthy way. Oh, I think it was meeting famous people or meeting influential people. They didn't have much social capacity.
Right. They didn't really know how to do it.
Meaning there wasn't much there because they're used to somebody handling or they're
Googling at them or being like, you can tell when someone's not genuine and they're just talking to you because they want to talk to you. Yeah. Because of who you are.
And when you're famous, you're cycling, or famous at any level. Like if you're an influencer, you start cycling through people now because people are commodities in that industry. Just moving through. You ever done an autograph signing? It's like, hold your book, hold it like this, hold it this way. And it's like, okay, I've been in those lines, you know? And I'm like, I get it. I get it, but it doesn't make you healthy. And then yeah,
So it's great. Mm-hmm.
that's enough of that today.
You know it.
But I'd like to take some time to get to the topic today, and thank you all for your patience with our technical difficulties. I pray that it doesn't. Pray for me. Just pray for me in that, because I thought we resolved it, and it looks like we didn't. But I want to get into another facet of my talk. It's been a series that I'll probably continue till right about the end of the year, just so you know. And it's a series that I've been doing on biblical building blocks. At some times I've taken some tangents and some other topics. I've come back. But I want to get into these biblical. I created a list of what are the biblical building blocks if you want to have a healthy mental health life and journey. It's going to need to be in these areas. And so this one is a major one. It's a big one. It's important. And all of us can take this and go, I need to grow in this. I need to develop in this. I need to allow God to enhance it, because I have this as a fundamental belief is our relationship history greatly impacts our mental health. I would say it's the greatest factor. If I was to sit down and look at your battleground of what you struggle with, you could even just tell me your label of diagnosis, or your few words to describe the battleground, and it would tell me a little bit of your relationship history. So when I mean that, I don't mean that in order for me to understand your mental health battle, I need to understand your whole life, your whole journey, every details. No, because I actually don't need to hear much of the story, because when you tell me the battleground, I already know. There's some factors that have been there that have not been there. And this takes us back. So when we have a mental health battle, it takes us back to our relational history in a good way, not in a staring at yourself all day long or introspecting endlessly, but reflecting back, how was I equipped in how I think and how I process my emotions and how I actually navigate that. And so I ignored those things and just kept going and kept going and kept going. Onward, Christian soldier. My battles caused me to take a sober look and go, okay, I need to recognize some things. And so when it comes to your relationship history, where it starts for you is, number one, is the bond. B-O-N-D, the bond that you had or didn't have with your parents. It starts with mom and dad. This is the formation of how we think and how we relate. And God designed that to be the template for how you see him. And so there are two factors that are important. One, the bond in how you related. Two, the bond in how they equipped. Did they cultivate a life where there was time to talk, to share, to equip you so that you could be released to live as an overcomer in this world, to be an overcoming adult, to live fruitfully in life? Now, there's no perfect parent. No perfect parent. I'm not a perfect parent. We all have aspects to what we experience parenting. We all have gaps and things. There's neglect and all that we have to work through and navigate through. The good news is we have a new father who is able to help fill those areas, but it takes learning. But you have to understand your bond, the bond with your parents or lack of, the family environment. Growing up, what was the culture of the family like? If someone a stranger was to step into your house and just watch, like a fly on the wall, and just watch how your family operates growing up, what kind of things would they notice emotionally about dealing with problems, discipline, about how God is related? What kind of patterns would there be? What kind of, what was the approach in dealing with, if you had a struggle or something you were going through? And then it moves us into, the first is the bond, second is family culture and upbringing, third is your relationship experiences, right? Growing up as a kid in middle school, high school, college years, adult years, these areas, you have significant moments and things in your life that impact you in certain ways. And so when it comes to mental health is really emotional health. We're really talking about emotions. because thoughts and emotions work together. You wouldn't even respond to a thought unless there was an emotional response. And without emotions, we'd be robots. Some people feel like they live like robots because they struggle with emotions, right? Thoughts and emotions, right? Emotions are cultivated in relationships. That's why everything comes down to relationship. That's how you develop your thoughts you pay attention to, thoughts you don't pay attention to, how you react to thoughts. So I use this illustration. If I sit down with you, I know your relationship history to a little bit of an extent. Now, I'm not reading your mind. It's just knowing how relationships impact our lives. For example, if there's a great history of neglect, it's going to do a tremendous amount of damage to you not being able to work through emotions. You're going to shut down. You're going to extra spin out. Neglect can create self-pity in you where you're prone to victim thinking and things like that. High levels of anxiety just in one area where you were constantly neglected. That's just one example. And so we have to understand our relationship experiences, not because we're victims, that, hey, this happened to me, so that's why I struggle with this, and that's forever my sentence. No, it's informative because life isn't so much about what happens to you. It's about learning how to heal, how to overcome, and we give that to others as a blessing to them. And so again, mental health is emotional health, and emotional health goes back to relationships. And relationship at its foundation needs love. Love is the foundation of all healthy mental health. Now, when I talk about this, many people say, well, I grew up in a loving home. They kind of just say it and kind of put it in a box over there. And it's like, okay, wait a second. You've got these battles. Let's not just take that and put it in a box over there. Were you really equipped in what it means to be loved? Giving and receiving love. Were you raised up in that and how to do that? Because love is the most important. There's nothing more important than love. Love is the greatest, Paul said. And Peter in his writing said, above all things, have fervent love for one another. So there you have two very big statements scripturally saying there's nothing important except for the foundation of understanding love. In fact, many of you in this broadcast, you're spinning out over a subject in your life, right? And it's a result of not being rooted and established in what love means, because love has a way of grounding our thoughts, right? Because we need that relationally. And so how are you with love? Are you able to give and receive love freely? Or is it very uncomfortable? There's a lot of goofiness show up, right? Is it a deep struggle? A lot of fear come in, right? We have our social phobias. We have our social anxieties. We have our just paranoias. We have our hypersensitivities. We have these areas that make us just really afraid of relationships. We want relationships, but we're afraid. And we need actually a realization that love is needed in those areas, but love is brought about through relationship practice and relationship interaction. And so for all of us, we have battlegrounds of learning to give and receive love. Many people say, well, I could be very giving and loving to people, but man, when people turn the light of love to me, I get so awkward, right? So how are you with love is a good question to ask. There's a battleground over people being able to receive love. That's why I teach so much on it. That's why I talk so much about it. I want to say this, and I say this with sobriety, because I don't mean this in any shame or anything like that, because it's a very sensitive subject. I want to say about 10 years ago, that famous pastor, Rick Warren, his son had committed suicide. An awful situation, absolutely awful. And as a part of that, I know that Mr. Warren became passionate about talking about mental health more and those kind of things. But there's a statement he said that I need to bring a little bit of nuance to it, because he created a blanket statement, and it had to do with love and mental health. And the statement was something like this. He said, if growing up and being loved would make you, love alone would make you mentally healthy, my son would still be alive today. And basically the equation of saying, that we loved on him. And so if that is what is needed for mental health, then he'd still be alive. So it must be something else. Now, mental health has lots of aspects to it. But what I'm bringing about today is the most important. What's missing from his statement is that you can love somebody all day long, but you have to understand there's a war over people receiving love. I, as a parent, have already gone through many, many hurdles with my kids where we have moments where there is a war inside of them to push back the love that we're giving to them. And it's not about how loving we're being. There is a resistance within. And it's out of how we see ourselves. And in our kids, it manifests in a lot of different ways. So there's equipping going on that is needed. And we're in this big need for a generational realization that we need equipping on what it means to actually say yes to love, live in love, and practice it. Because that surrounds 100% of all the work that I do, and everyone I interact with is in need for a deeper experience of love. And you can love somebody all day long, but they can have a war within them that resists it and says no to it. And you'll see this. Many of you that have had to deal with addicts, for example, where people that have severe addictions, and they have a very difficult time giving and receiving love in ways that stabilize them. And you can love on them. You can do a big intervention and love on them, and they go out and they use that night. And there's a war over them actually taking in. It's one of the biggest wars that I see in the church. And it's why I wrote the book, God Loves Me and I Love Myself, a very strong declaration of claiming and taking back this ground where God's loving on us all day long, but there's a resistance pushing back because of the battles that we face, because of our relational history, because of our lack of equipping. It's time that we actually learn to say yes to love, and we start practicing it in day-to-day life. I had to make a decision that when people would extend an expression of love, that I would no longer give in to the fussing that was going on. Acknowledge it, say yes, and appreciate it. Because when you tell me something great or encouraging, immediately a resistance would rise up to buck it and push it back. And I said, enough is enough. I'm not doing that anymore. I need my healing. I need to grow. I need to overcome. I'm going to say yes to love when it shows up. I'm talking about just in everyday interactions and from the people that are genuinely trying to love on you. And it may be through a variety of ways. It may be through gifts. It may be through encouragement. It may be through proximity and presence. It may be through the words that they share with you. I had to make a decision. I'm going to say yes to it. Because the invisible God makes himself visible through human interactions. So what I mean by that is you can't see God. You believe in him. It's by faith we believe. God is spirit, so you can't see him with the 5 physical senses. But you can see people. You can see other human beings. And so I want to actually bring out, when I shut down my computer and had to reboot, I lost my scripture here. So give me a second to just pull it back up. But I want to show you this, how important this is in Jesus's talk to the disciples here in John 15. He says this to them. He says, "These things I've spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full." Oh, we need a joy break in just a moment. Joy dance break. I didn't have any dance breaks. We need to have one. He said, "This is my commandment." So we got to follow God's commandments. People start panicking and getting nervous. That you love one another as I have loved you. So he's saying, you see how I interacted with you guys? I want you to take this and I want you to show it to other people. Because Jesus, the Word became flesh, incarnate became flesh, because God knew that we needed to, as the disciples did, that which we have seen, which we have looked upon, which our hands have handled, and which we have looked upon, right? As John so eloquently wrote and expressed, right? As he shared interacting with Jesus. The incarnate Word made flesh. What an encounter to live for those years, right? To see him and walk with him and go, this is what God is like. Amazing. And Jesus is going, see what you saw? Now do that with each other. This is the call that the church is meant to interact, is that in all things, we learn how to live in love with each other. He says, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. And then he upgrades the sense of power and relationship. He's like, you are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants. For a servant does not know what his master is doing. I've called you friends. For all the things I've heard from my Father, I've made known to you. So God sends Jesus, to the invisible God is now made visible. He walks amongst us in the flesh. Then he says to the disciples, now build this on this premise, show this to each other, so that, this is the cool thing. There have been people in my life, in my journey, some I knew very well, some I saw for a moment. They became a tangible opportunity for me to say yes to God's love. And you will have those too. But I have to tell you, there is a war within you to push back, to dismiss it, to say no. And you and I have a decision to make. And I'm going to say yes. Say yes to love, even if every devil in hell wants to try to squirm within me to stop it. I still say yes. And I'm continuing to say yes to that love and to appreciate it everywhere it shows up in my life. Because the more I say yes to it, the more it grows, the more I know what it looks like, and the more I learn to live in that. Now, in your relationship world, you have 3 relationships that impact your mental health, right? Because there's 3 relationships you live in. God, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with others. And Jesus' words remind us of what's most important. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. This is the first and greatest. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So your relationship with God, how you see yourself in that, how you relate to others, how you give and receive love and interact, and how you process that. And for many of us, we get stuck in our life because the flow of love is stuck. And you may be in your journey going, I'm trying to connect with God. And maybe you're, wherever you're at, maybe you're pushing away relationships, or you're afraid of relationship interaction. But remember, the invisible God shows up in that. Jesus himself even said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. It's a powerful imagery of, I want to see you all interacting with each other. I want to see there being edification, encouragement, building up in this, because this is where I am made visible. Many people say, where was God in this? We should really say, where's the human being in this? We often say, why does God allow starving people to be, or homeless people? And it's like, well, what are we doing as human beings to be vessels? Because the invisible God reveals himself through vessels that are willing to take a step and demonstrate, to give and to receive his love. Now, the good news is that being a believer, when you say yes to Christ, it gives us new relationships. We now have a new Father. God is our Father. And we now, as believers, you have a large family of brothers and sisters. An endless supply of brothers and sisters. The mark of Christ on us brings a bond that we can have and that we can share, to be able to connect and to have a hope for our future, to encourage one another, to build that love capacity. Because God designed the church to manifest healthy relationships. If someone says our church is really healthy, it should mean not they're big, not they have a big budget, not that they operate seamlessly, or that they have these well-oiled machines. The healthy church knows how to operate in healthy relationships. Jesus said there's going to be a marker by which they know who you are. They will know you are my disciples if you have love for each other. They're going to look and they're going to see it. And there's going to be a knowing that those who don't believe, or those who are on the outside, or those who are noticing, there's something there. Look at how they love each other. Most of the apostles' writings are all instructions on how to interact with each other and how to improve, whether it's getting bitterness out of your life, speaking the truth in love, edifying each other, how to relate to each other in fruitful ways. The fruit of the Spirit itself starts with love. I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, but Peter's writing says, and above all things. Those of you that have struggles reading your Bible, you have to know where things say, this is the greatest, above all things, so that you take things in priority as God values them. Above all things, have fervent love for one another. Be cultivating that, cherishing that, asking yourself, how can I learn to live and grow in love? But know that your enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy that. He wants to erode your relationship world. And he'll start it as young as possible, and he'll let those wounds stay festered and unhealed and unaddressed. Jesus made this statement where he said, the thief does not come except to steal, kill, and destroy. What's he talking about? Your relationship world. How do I know that? Because Jesus gives the remedy. I've come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Where does life flow from? It flows from the heart. Where does life flow? It's relational. Jesus wouldn't say, I've given you life and you're having abundant life and you never ever talk with any human being ever, right? No, that doesn't. No, life is found as we say yes to it. Let the love of Christ, let the love of the Father work in our lives. And we practice it now with other people. I feel now more than ever in the social media world that we live in and just the society that we live in, we need to now more than ever simplify and get back to more and more simple relationship interaction practice. In many of the things that come to me in my emails or phone calls or meetings with people, where I am seeing where our relationship skills have not been developed. Where even just day-to-day interaction, we're struggling with so many areas. I've even had to interact with people. We're struggling to get the conversation going. We're struggling to even take a step. We're struggling to make the phone call. We're struggling. And so then, we don't bother and we don't bother. And there is a part in the assignment where the thief wants to erode that, steal, kill, and destroy. This message is not about your church attendance. It's not about how many friends you have. It's not about how many people consider you an influencer, how popular you are. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with a call to get back to the simplicity of I need to be mindful of relationship interaction to help, because there is a war to keep you from it, and also to keep the toxic ones preventing you from moving forward in new ones, right? Many times in our wounds, we then project a fear-based blockade from moving forward. You get hurt in a dating relationship, so then you go, I'm not taking a step forward again, right? It's a signal that healing needs to happen. But there still needs to be, I got to step out at some point and start opening up myself to the new. I hope this is making sense and it's hitting home for you, because that's where the war is. When it comes to spiritual warfare, many people write about this thing and that thing and these things for discernment and strategy. I'm going to give it to you simple. Relationship. The spiritual war is over relationship. Steal, kill, destroy. Because the root system of our mental health struggles is relationship breakdown and disconnection. Because if there's disconnection, your mental health struggles, your emotions struggle. 1 John 4:18 reminds us, he who fears, remember, because that covers anxiety, worry, your obsessions. He who, fill that with whatever fear you have, has not been made perfect in love. How do we get made perfect in love? God, I'm going to sit here and you're going to love me. I got to go practice. I got to say, yes, God, you love me, but I got to go practice. I got to go interact with people. Sometimes it's as simple as interactions with people that you see every day at work or people that you interact with on a regular basis, of just appreciating this is my opportunity to learn, to heal, to grow. I'm I'm sharpening. Relationships have a sharpening way to them, right? Because you're talking, you're aware of the other person and maybe how they're feeling. They're answering back and you're going back and forth and you're walking away from the conversation kind of thinking about it. And we're learning to heal, to grow and mature. And I feel that now more than ever, we need to be aware of this. Because if you're going to experience greater healing and strengthening in your mental health, you're going to need to heal and grow in how you process relationship. You have to value it. Some people don't even value relationships, right? They're just like, I don't want to talk to anybody anymore. But it's learning how to heal through our relationship history that impacts us now, that we're seeing it's impacting us now. And then learning how to practice. And I want you to understand too, you need to see it in the simple. Because many people say, I'm lonely, I don't have any friends. And I want deep, meaningful friends. And I go, okay, if you're lonely and you don't really have any friends, you don't have one person that you can interact with. We had a poll that we posted on our previous broadcast and we lost it because we had to change broadcasts. But it was basically saying, do you have somebody you feel safe to share with? Is it no one? Is it one person? Or is it more than one? Right? And one person, if you have one person you can share with, that's amazing. Like one person who's a safe presence that loves you, but also is a sharpening place, right? That when you leave their presence, there's a part of you that's a little bit better in just even the smallest ways, right? But people want that like deep, meaningful relationship, but they overwhelm themselves. Like, I don't have any friends. I want a best friend. It's like, okay, that's a big step. You don't make a best friend overnight. What you can do is you can practice relationship interaction. Do you know in the years of my work, I've brought this down to a very, very fundamental level. Back in my pastoring days, I had people in my office where I would practice interacting. I say, okay, we're going to practice. Okay, why don't you go to the door and I'm going to pretend like I'm a stranger. You're going to walk in and we're going to introduce ourselves to each other and we're going to practice interacting. Some of you say that's foolish. That seems silly. No, it's practice. You may have to practice saying something in front of the mirror and then go out and give it a shot to somebody. Going to the grocery store, saying hello to the mailman, saying hello to your neighbor. Many of you that have phobias and social fears and obsessiveness about interactions, and you're scared to even leave the house. I've worked with people who could not even get out of bed, and we're like, okay, we're going to take incremental steps, and this week we're going to work out getting out of bed and eventually getting to the point, one situation I remember in particular years ago where got her to where she was walking down the street and down the block, right? And getting her energy back and step by step, having interaction with people. This is not just you need to be a social person. I'm fighting for your mental health. I'm fighting for your sanity. I'm fighting for your future. I see the beauty of God in the simplest of interactions. And they often come by surprise. It can be online at CVS and the line's a little bit long and I'm a little bit tired that day and look over and somebody's there and we kind of both are tired and we have a little exchange, right? Or someone in the drive-thru that you just happen to say a comment to and you bless them and you share, thank you so much for the hard work that you do, or you give a tip. Or you give a little extra in that tip when you're at that restaurant. You see, and you just want to be a blessing, or you share a word of encouragement. You practice. We do this with our kids, and where I go through the drive-thru, I say, Abby, you're going to say the order. I did that even many, many years ago. You're going to say the order. You're going to practice being who you are. In the restaurant, you're going to say your order. You're going to practice. We're going to take simple steps to interact, because this isn't just about being social. It's not about being popular. It's about you developing your emotional capacity and how you work through your emotions and how you think. Relationships, thoughts, emotions all go together. And when I realized that, it changed my life, because I saw every interaction as my learning and my practicing. So I appreciate that. The brief, the longer ones, the deeper ones, the shallow ones, learning to live in that whole spectrum of letting the invisible God show up in the day-to-day. You'll pray, God, I need this. It's often going to be a human that will often say some of the things or be a vessel in some of the ways. to help be a bridge to the next step that you need. And just understand too that God will bring his grace sometimes in a package that may not always be the perfect package or the one that you would like, or maybe it's a neighbor that they've got these quirks or things, but just one day they said something to you that was really meaningful for your journey. And it was actually something that you need to be reminded of, to take that encouragement and take the next step. So I'm praying that out of this, you say a prayer that I've prayed. God, I allow my heart to be open for relationship interaction. I want to treasure the ones I have and allow time, especially for those face-to-face interactions, as best as possible. I mean, I have friends who are out of state, so it's through, technology. Thank God for technology. But I want to stretch myself and be available for the new that you're bringing into my life. New interactions, new opportunities, because in it, I can be a blessing. But there's also something in this for me that's important, and that's helping to sharpen and strengthen my mental health. So I pray this is a blessing to you guys. I pray it blesses your life and your journey. I pray that it helps encourage you and take the next step. What is it going to look like for you? Comment in the comments if you don't mind. What's the next step for you relationally to be open to? Maybe it's just the real simple, or maybe you have some relationships and it's like, you know what? I want to take some more time where we go a bit deeper so we can support each other and encourage each other. Let's take a Joy Dance break. I hope some good stuff was received in here. Just kind of looking through some of the comments and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Get your
Sorry, am I on?
Yeah. This is such a big deal to me because as in the season before I met you and was working through so many areas of my life, I had to really make value that my relational world needs equipping. And I thought that I was able to do relationships well, but it was like in a certain setting. But when it was just me without the role I was in, just being myself, that was more uncomfortable. And I had to learn how to practice that. I'd realized I was getting lost in like feeding a role. Mm-hmm. Now I feel like, because I was always shooting towards the role, now I feel like I shoot more towards just everyday life.
Just being
like I like the ordinary, mm-hmm.
We do.
That's just my journey.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I think, you and I talk about this stuff a lot too, because we're trying to practice these things with our kids, even when they were little, even through Max's. I think too, that's been a big focus for us too, because of Max's struggles and helping him. And actually we're to a point where Max is more relational than like a typical functioning 15-year-old. He is like just amazing at like when he's introducing, shaking hands, looking people in the eye. And we miss those little things. I love when people shake my hand. I like that connection point. I love a good handshake. Someone looking in my eye and going, "Hi, Melissa, how are you?" Just the eye connection for me. We used to, when the kids were little too, I don't know if you remember this, I'm sure you do, but we would have the kids stand on like a little platform because we were very much like, don't be afraid of their faces, right? The verse. And teaching them to be confident in when they talk, and they would get up and they would have to tell a story. They would have to make up a story and tell the story. And we saw them grow in that, and it was wonderful. I mean, then when you get to teenage years, they have
right. We're at another level of.
But most of us were not even giving those very practical things. We go back to the like children should be seen and not heard. Growing up, yes, you saw maybe parents, friends here and there, but even having that you be brought in to be comfortable in interaction, watching your parents, because that's a big thing too, that they are the example for you. You're watching what they're doing, and maybe some of us had parents that didn't do that well or don't have friends over, and you were not seeing them. So where do you expect to learn that?
That's right.
So that's a lot where it goes back to the practice in just the simple things, like you said, whether it's in the drive-through or things like that, of practicing. And like you said, even where you practice with people in your office, it could sound silly. No, people actually need that practical help.
Yep. When you were sharing that part about Max, he's quite a friendly young man. He's very, very friendly, very mindful of connecting to people, asking them some questions, because there's one of the greatest ways that you can practice relationship skills without a lot of without having to go through a bunch of training or something, is just learning to ask good questions, ask questions that show you're interested in somebody. Now, in order to do that, I need to think about you, right? So that gets me out of my head, because a lot of us get stuck in our head, we're spinning. And we gotta, in order to untangle that, that wheel, we have to think outward and ask good questions. And so he's getting better and better. But it makes me think back as a parent. I want to say it took about 3 years, correct me if I'm wrong, of shaking his hand. Max, how are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
And he would, in the early days, for a long, long time, I'd go, how are you doing? He'd go, how are you doing? No, we're gonna, because he would repeat, and no, we're gonna give a response, and it was.
It took years.
Yeah,
you would practice this with him.
How are you doing? And then finally got to, I'm fine. Now, that's.
But then it became rote too. I'm fine. How are you?
Right. Then expand it, think through.
Right.
But Max is on the autism spectrum, right? But I also look at our world. And I look at how much we've had to work at this, and I look and I see the body of Christ going, we all need work in this. This is not just a spectrum thing. This is
correct.
We all need to learn how to practice it, but we get overwhelmed because we're like, oh, I need this group of friends, or I need a special small group. And maybe you need a small group, but start simple. And it's like people that want meaningful believers. Well, do you know one? Well, maybe get together every once in a while and see what happens. And just have some coffee and let it go from there, right?
I will say too, I think it's okay that you like the small, connecting to the small. There was somebody that if I could just find it quickly. Someone mentioned about just back to pastoral ministry for a second.
Yeah.
If you're called to minister to the masses, you need to allow them access and acknowledgement. Assuming she's saying to you, Moses' father-in-law gave him the answer, should you do the same? don't you think it's one-sided?
So like, I'm not sure what the question.
I think the question is, if you're a minister and you have, I don't know, 50, 100, whatever the masses means, that you should connect to allow them access to you. So my question to that, and
The whole crowd, the whole
yeah,
mass.
that's what I'm saying. Like, there is a point sometimes where you get overloaded.
No, that's impossible.
You can't do that.
Well, that's exactly what Moses was overloaded with. So then Moses was instructed to have people to help him. You know, his father-in-law was like, you know, I mean, how many of you would love to have a father-in-law that, you know, gave helpful feedback, you know, like that, but instructed him to break it down a bit. My call, like, let's say you have you have something going on that grows in influence. My thing that I'm trying to bring out in that situation is go deeper and smaller with those that are in that, you know, that arena.
Yeah. You can't pour out and connect to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Jesus maxed it out.
You can't.
Jesus maxed it out. 12.
Right. And even he took really long breaks. And was like, I got to go be with Dad. I'll be back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's probably where Jesus's sinlessness allowed him to deal with 12.
Right. Because I'm like, 12.
Because yeah, we all look at 12 and go, that's a lot of people, right?
Right.
But even amongst the 12, there was the 3,
yeah,
Peter, James, and John, and amongst those
was the one, the beloved.
John was his favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So you know,
yeah,
you know, so it's I'm talking about day-to-day life. Today, ministry has become a machine. I think if Jesus was living today, the first thing they would do is go, we need to get your website going, jesus.org. We need to get this, you know, we need to get, and then they'd be like, so 1 second, Jesus, let me get your website. Where'd he go? And he'd disappear.
Right.
Because there's a pull that we have as humans to try to, we think that fame, there's a relationship with fame that's going to A, fulfill our hearts, and B, that's going to make the long-term meaningful difference. And I want to encourage people to stop chasing numbers and fame and popularity.
Right.
And just go deeper with who we need. We need to get back to the simplicity of valuing just what we have here.
Right.
So that's.
I love that.
Yeah.
That was really good, babe.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome, everyone. Appreciate y'all being with us. If this has been a blessing to your life, you want to support it, go ahead and click the donate button over at markdesus.com. We appreciate that. Like and subscribe, share it. If you want to join in the healing and freedom community, I'm teaching on the OCD healing journey. In fact, this week, Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll be getting into teaching on control issues based on that book. And I'm expanding on that book. So there's so much more in there. This past week, I did a whole talk on exchanging yokes, where Jesus said, my burden is easy, my burden is light. That and so much more. You get access to all my courses, and let it be an encouragement to your life and to your journey. Well, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. This is your brother from another mother.
And your sister from another mister.
Saying we'll be back with more live broadcasts and insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime,
we out.